current marketing if you like, ways, the way Facebook and all the other social media links and platforms are set up, it's very our US our US what you call USB or whatever it's called, the unique selling point is the people, it's us, and you put us next to any other educator, and our adverts might be on par, but it's the people and it's us that make us better, and it's easier to, in my opinion, to be able to with a video, um, you get a little bit more, detail. It's a bit more in depth. You get to see the people because particularly like the likes of Instagram, it's very anonymous. Um, Video, people seem to respond more to video for two reasons. One, because they're lazy as fucking, they don't want to read. Okay. But also, secondly, you get to see the people.
So, supposing that we have lots of people listening in, and you have a little window into their lives, what would the message be now that you've got their attention?
I think my main goal, or our main goal, should be to try and help people overcome this bad stigma around forex trading, online trading, and educators. I went through this a very similar situation about 20 years ago. I was how do I say this? I was a car clamper, okay, but I was a good car clamper. Right.
Is there such thing as a
Well,
bad
this is the thing. Is there such thing as a good one? And because they're all, it's a dodgy business, okay. But we were again the good guys in a bad industry. For example, I would never clamp an old person, a disabled person.
Just his car, though, right?
Yeah, we would be very careful about, common sense has got to prevail. Most of the clampers out there would just clamp anything and anyone, and they would really push to the point where they was doing stuff illegal, knowing that people would probably wouldn't challenge them or push back, would just pay the money, and that's what got the industry such a bad reputation.
Sure.
But for me, I was, as far as I was concerned, I was the clamper with a heart. And what I didn't like to do was, I would assess every situation. I'd ask them a selection of questions. Did you know you were just be honest. Did you know you were clamping illegally? If they say yes, then you're paying.
Yeah.
If there was a genuine reason why they parked there, and I believe them to be sincere, on your way.
So what you're saying is there's a link between the clampers and the ticket people, the parking ticket people, and forex at the moment. Is there a similarity with you guys?
Everyone has them.
So, if you had the opportunity to correct that view, what would be the first thing you would tell somebody that's interested in getting into this?
I think the problem is with our industry is so many people have either been sold a dream, have been completely misled, and they have not been, their experience has not been a good one. I mean, in all honesty, I only know of one other good educator, but I know of lots of educators.
Yeah.
So therefore, the balance is not a fair view of the industry, and I wrestle with this all the time, and I always feel like I need to overcompensate with kindness and reassurance to people when they're coming through, to give them a degree of confidence that they're in good hands and they're not going to get, done again, if you like. Um, yeah, so a bit of a campaign to
What about the balance? This is one of those things where there's so many downloads and PDFs and things on YouTube that you can do to self-help and teach yourself, what would you say to people that kind of are thinking that you don't need to pay for an education in forex? What would you say?
Well, that's a really, really good question because I'm self-taught, but I don't recommend you do it.
Some hard lessons.
Expensive ones. Like I lost 200 grand learning, and whilst I mean, complete contrast to what I'm saying to the guys, self-learning is expensive education. I lost £200,000, and whilst I remember, I mean, I spent, God, you can imagine the hours I spent in that little study over in the barn. And Helen will tell you this, while the family was all in the next room, playing about, playing the games, having the crack, I'm stuck in that room managing bad trades, trying to work out strategies, how I'm going to get out of this scrappy trade. Because I made all the mistakes that people make, and that is I was holding on to bad trades and taking profits early. And, I was literally firefighting for what almost felt like 18 hours a day. But those lessons are invaluable.
Would you say those lessons make up the structure of what you try to teach your students?
Absolutely. That is, I try to do as I do, not as I do as I say, not as I've done. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's what I'm trying. That's why I try and get across to people.
A really interesting question for you then. What would today's you say to the you that first started out in this business?
Pay for education before you put money into an account.
And that's not just a sales thing, that's a genuine.
No, definitely. One of our old marketing guys produced a graphic once, and I swear to God, it really rung true with me. And it was investing in the right education pays the best dividend. And I thought, fuck, that's great, that is, because it's so true. Because the problem is, no one's got a bigger ego than me. I don't mind admitting that. I'm never wrong. I don't like to admit I'm wrong, although I'm much better now than I used to be. When I first started trading, I'd come out of business where I was turning over 30 million quid. I had all the bullshit, all the trappings, and I thought I was the nuts. So whatever I went into, there's nothing I can't do. Trading taught me a lot about myself, and that was, Richard, you don't know shit. Okay. And I went into depths of emotion that,
Emotion you didn't even know
it
you
was,
had.
well, not just that, it resembled hell, and it was hot. And, listen to this analogy, right? There'd be so many times where I would make a trade and I knew I shouldn't be making that trade. But when I was making a trade, it was like I was going down a slide and I was sliding into fire because I knew that fire was the cause of a bad trade, and I ain't going to be able to get back up that slide without a plan. And just that sinking feeling of knowing you've just made a bad trade and having to then deal with the emotion that comes in, and you've got to get out of this. And because not only are you potentially losing money from that bad trade, it distracts you from making any more trades because it has your whole focus. And the lesson from that was, if it's a shit trade, cut it dead quick, because it's not just the loss you'll take on that trade, it's the prevention of making other trades.
It's the emotional effect and the psychological effect.
It sent me batty. It sent me crazy. It sent me nuts. I went on antidepressants, and I don't want admitting that day when I lost and I blew my account 3-4 years in, I had a breakdown. I couldn't get out of bed. It destroyed me. So getting back to the question is, think about your education, and that's why it's so important to get a basis of education. Because getting back to me and my ego, I threw money into an account. The problem I had was my first 2 trades were really good, easy winning trades, and I thought, this is a piece of piss. And then I lost a fortune. And what I didn't do was do a proper, I didn't look into the industry properly. I just, this is a piece of piss.
you see lots of people in the industry, people from Wall Street, in the whole industry, the whole stocks and shares, the forex thing. If people are sort of having a generic interest in getting into trading, why forex? Why not stocks and shares? Why not gold? Why not?
So it's different. So stocks and shares isn't online trading. Stocks and shares requires a different skill, and it's not for everyone. Don't get me wrong. Listen, you can all read the bollocks that comes out on Facebook, Tesla, Apple, Amazon, yeah, and that's not analysis. Detailed analysis into a stock is very, very difficult, and it requires a very, very special set of skills. You've got to be, to do it properly, you've got to be an accountant, you've got to be a financial advisor, you've got to be super cool because you're holding that stock during what can be bad. You've got to have a great insight into not just economies, but so for example, it's all about electric now, which is why Tesla's going mad. In the future, there's possible hydrogen, or there's cars coming out now which could potentially run on salt water. So, you've got to have insight, and you've got to be able to put your money where your mouth is. And, it might look at Bitcoin, it's took 10 years or 20 years or whatever it was. You've got to be really committed, and you've got to be, if you're taking a punt, that's fine, and you put in what you can afford to lose and forget about it. There's that kind of stocks investment. But, to be a real stock trader, you've got to have much more skill and education and insight than you have to be a country trader.
Sure. So what would be the core kind of reason to get involved in the forex side of things over, let's say, Bitcoin?
I think whilst there are risks, I think if you manage risk, I had a really good conversation with a very good friend of mine who's I seem very much on a par with me because, the kid's clever, as far as I'm concerned, I respect his view and he can give me advice and I'll listen to it, excuse me. Shout out to my mate Spike, by the way. So Spike's got, he's got two nice houses on the same property. His core, I met him during my kickboxing days. He was the same weight category as me, and we always used to meet in the final because he was good. He used to beat me more than I used to beat him. I don't want anything. He got great legs. So I've always had a lot of respect for the guy. But he's gone on to do well in life, and he's got some nice businesses. He's got some assets and whatnot. He's a helicopter pilot, and he was in the Navy. So he'd fly out to me and jump on my boat and drive my boat for me with us. He believes in the pandemic as such, yeah, and that's how we got onto the subject of chatting. And he believes in the reset, this big economic reset, and he's involved in various different sort of investments, including crypto and one or two others. And he's not particularly clued up in investment or online investment or online trading, although he's been through my program. We came to a seminar a long time ago, and he's making money in crypto. Now, it's not actually that difficult to make money in crypto as long as it's going the right way. And currencies are very similar, except for 9 times out of 10, if there's a move in the currency markets, we know why. If there's a move in the crypto space, no one knows why, because they're pump and dumps. Yeah, so it's very hard to trade that safely. But generally speaking, people that trade in the crypto space own coin. Whereas with us, we are making a speculative trade on a direction. Well, it's either going to go up or down. So you've got a 50% chance of getting it, whether you think it or not.
There's a lot more to it than that, but a lot of the education is based around why it's moving, where it might move to, and how you can.
Yeah, it's understanding why it's moving and where it's going to move to during that moment. And our education is, based on 4 simple strategies that we can generally apply in most markets. And the the foundation of the education is we track one economy, being the dollar, because the dollar's king. So we track the US.
What about your education? Where did you, who taught you? I know we have some master classes and some modules from Jimmy Young. Were there any other sources of sort of education and
So
inspiration for you when you first started?
when I finally accepted defeat and that I needed to get some education, I did the YouTube thing, but the YouTube thing hindered me more than it helped me because that's not strictly true. There is some good stuff on there, but it's one knowing who to trust. But the difficulty for me was this: I would get myself an understanding of a certain thing, whether it be a strategy, a chart, a candle, whatever. But then I would look at another one, and it would completely unravel it. A bit like analysis paralysis, you can talk yourself out of. And you know, we haven't really got the time to keep testing that person's view versus that person's view, because ultimately it means money. And you know, there are millions of videos on YouTube, which what will happen is if your education is solely YouTube based, you will eventually move on to something else,
Sure.
because you will. Everyone has got a limited appetite in whatever they do, whether it's mowing the lawn. Like I'll wake up on a Saturday morning, I'm going to mow my lawns today. Generally, I've taught myself out of it by the time I've realised I've got no petrol for the mower, and I can't be asked to go and get some, right? But some person will persevere and they'll just mow the lawns. It's the same with trading. The problem is with trading is I think it's a quick book, which is why we see a turnover of people. I don't like a turnover of people. I really like them to stick with it. And we're very clear from the beginning. Listen, this is not an overnight thing. £200 to £500 a day is where you should be aiming. Forget those 10, 20, 30, 50,000 pound a day. That ain't going to happen. And I think that works in our case, because when people come to us, you know, we heard a lot of it of late, and I forget who it was. I think it might have been Albie. He said, the reason why I've come to you is because of how straightforward and honest you are, is that I'm not going to make, you know, you're saying I'm going to make this, and he said, I'm more comfortable in believing what you're saying. Of course, all the other, you know, shall we say, undesirable educators will sell you a dream and anything just to get your money off you.
I mean, I think on platforms like Instagram, for example, and YouTube, that flashy watch or the yacht or the car might appeal to people because it's a visual aspiration. But the reality is, particularly what we're going through in lockdown and coronavirus, the reality is people are just looking for something a bit more stability. So how does Forex provide that kind of stability to somebody looking to get into it?
I know we say it every month in our advertising, but I genuinely don't believe there's a better time to learn to trade. And that's the truth, because of the lockdown, because of the time we've got available to us to A, learn, and B, seriously give think to what am I going to do if I lose my job. But you raised a good point there about the watches, the cars, the yachts. I tried all that. I say I tried all that. I've had it all, okay? And I thought that's what people wanted to see, you know. I think people need to see a little bit of lifestyle. They need to see a little bit of proof in the pudding. You know, I'm not, and I never would be one of those people that would have something, hire it and pretend that, and try and, you know, mug people off and say, you know, this is my life. You know, those idiots that are walking off private jets. Do you know what I mean? That's not me. You know, it's bollocks. I mean, I own my yacht. I've had 3 yachts. I had 2 yachts before I even got involved in trading. Yachting is my bag. Yachts. Most people are into cars. I like cars, but boats were my thing. And I didn't necessarily buy that last boat for Simple, but I and this might sound a bit weird. It was a tribute to Simple, okay? Because in 2010, when I had the bleed on the brain and we lost everything again, well, 2008 to 2010. It was trading that got me back, even though I've been to hell and back that many times on that fucking slide, had my ass burnt that many times. It was a bit of payback to myself. and a bit of a tribute to Simple. That's why I called the boat FX,
Mhm.
because it was a tribute to where I'd been and I'd made it work.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And to this day, there's still no better feeling than waking up on your boat, you know. And I forget the bullshit marketing side of things. What about me personally? Waking up on my yacht to the sun and going to my office on the boat and, you know, turning my screens on and, you know, chatting to the guys, our members, and pulling off a trade. And the best feeling ever was, I'll never forget, we were traveling to Gibraltar. I brought my computer up and I sat at the dining room table. My father-in-law was piloting the boat for me. He didn't realise it was on autopilot, okay? But he thought he was piloting the boat. And I looked out my left and just been loads of dolphins, and it was a beautiful, calm sea. And that's it for me. That's it. That, you know,
That's the pinnacle.
that is the pinnacle in my life. That you know, I look down to the back of the boat and I see my mum, my mother-in-law, my kids on the back of the boat. You know, which is a nice steady 10 knots. The kids on the jet skis jumping off the back of the waves off the back. My father-in-law's piloting the boat, thinking he's driving it, it's on autopilot. My stepdad's up the front, just getting a bit of sun. That's it for me. Cars and watches and all that. Unfortunately, or fortunately, when you are starting to sort of do well, you know, you want nice things.
Of course.
And I've got, you know, I had a really nice watch collection, which I sold when I blew my account the first time to get myself some money because I wasn't walking away from it. I sold my truck and my watches. I had 3 tags, 3 Rolexes, 2 Breitlands, and I raised, I think it's 50 grand. And I thought, I'm going back at this. I'm not walking away. I'm a car lover. I love my cars. Um, although my taste in cars is changing, must be because I'm nearing 50. But I've got my eye out now for an old 993 Porsche because they don't get down in value. That Defender I bought's gone up in value. That Merc I've got plummeting in value. So I'm not going to apologise for being a fan of cars. So me and the unscrupulous educators out there that like a flash car, unfortunately, we've got a little bit of in common there.
I've come across people that are quite precious of their, let's say, the material belongings, but you can't beat the family and everybody being happy and obviously health and things like that are more important than most at the moment. So on that subject, coronavirus, and I'm conscious we're not going to use up all the material we've got for our actual podcast, but people are probably thinking the last thing I want to do is invest money at the moment or spend money that I'm not sure I'm going to have in 6 months' time. And that potentially is not scaring people off, but it's making people very conscious about their financial situation at the moment.
Yeah.
And so you said previously that this is a good time to get involved in Forex. Would you mind just explain a little bit more about why you think that's the case and maybe a message to those people that are kind of sitting on the fence a little bit?
Okay, so I wanted this to sound like a sales tactic. First and foremost, I wasn't really a believer in the pandemic, if you like. I'm still not sure it's a pandemic, but I believe in the virus because I've had it twice. The first time I had it, it did knock the shit out of me, but I just thought it was a bad flu, the worst flu I've ever had, and I am getting older. I'm not exactly in the best of health, and as you get older, as your grandparents do, they get worse as they get older with their viruses. So I just thought it was that. I started to understand or research about something called long COVID, which are the lasting effects of COVID. And I had all the symptoms. I didn't know. But the one thing that I realized was I was so tired. You know, I would come on and do a session with the guys online. And say if I'd done a masterclass on the night or a mention session, I physically would have to go to bed and have half an hour or an hour of sleep because I could not. I mean, I see you doing it now. You work morning right through till night, and I'm thinking, fuck, I should be able to do that. But I can't do it. I know I'm doing a little bit more on the research side, so that's draining. But clearly, I've got some issues regarding
Yeah.
my sort of long COVID. And then obviously I picked it back up again in December, and I was bedridden then for over 3 weeks, which was scary, to be honest. Um, Waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning in a puddle of sweat, freezing cold, shivers, night after night was a real wake up call for me. Um, and you'll notice I'm not having my kids don't come around the house. I'm not having friends around the house. I'm respecting the law and the rules because it is something that we need to take note of. So I do believe in a virus of sorts. Now, in terms of the way the government has handled it, I heard a really good saying the other day, and that was the governments never pass up a good opportunity of a disaster.
Yeah, I guess they have to kind of play it in their favour
They will always
opportunity.
make it work for them because it's always us and them. Getting back to your original question about why would currency trading or online currency trading be a good foot forward in this climate? So people have got more time in their hands now. Some may have more disposable income than they did before, whether it be through the bounce back loan scheme or I know there's HMRC grants, but I'm also conscious that their income may also have been affected. Most people tend to have some kind of an emergency fund, particularly us old uns. We have to have something in reserve because you never know what's around the corner. Your daughter might come home and say she wants to get married one day, and there's that gone. Or so for me, the reason why I think it's a good opportunity now is because we are the real deal. We can teach people how to trade. Yes, it's hard. It's not going to be easy. But if you get it right, you'll never go back to work. This will be your job, and we've seen this in and out. We obviously get a turnover of people because once people learn how to trade, they don't need me anymore. They don't need me kicking their ass to say, why are you not answering? Why are you not giving me a thumbs up and this and that? And the strict rules that we follow in the room, they've made it. They've paid their dues. They've learned how to trade. Once you pass your test, you don't still keep having your driving lessons off your instructor, do you?
I mean, they're just learning in a different way, aren't
They've cracked it. They might come back every now and again for a bit of advice, but the whole learner-driver analogy is a great example that once you've passed your test and you know how to drive, you say goodbye to your driving instructor and off you go. But I quite like that.
Yeah. There's another, I mean, that's a good analogy because technically, as a youngster, you could get your dad to teach you how to drive or your friend or your uncle or whatever, but, it's proven that paying for an instructor,
someone who knows what they're doing,
faster. So there's not really a difference between something like that.
The problem is in our industry is that out of a pool of 10 educators, you unless you do your due diligence, people are dazzled by the get rich quick and dare I say it, the fucking private jet bollocks and the nice watching the car nonsense.
So to wrap up this, what's the biggest thing that you've learned in the last 12 months about?
Last 12 months?
Yeah.
The biggest lesson for me was the trading conditions of 2020. And we talked about this in depth last night when we did our mentoring session last night. The trading conditions of 2020 were reminding me of those hell days of when, you'd make a bad trade. But the difference was when I was making those trades, I made them with all the right analysis and research, and they still, on occasion, went against us. And the frustrating thing for me was, I'm teaching the guys how to follow. This is what you do in this instance. And then it's still not working for them. Now we know, 85% of the time in a calm market, in a calm sea, with the right analysis and the right research, it'll pay off. But most of the time during 2020, it felt like a 50-50 because you had so much in terms of pandemic, elections, Trump, China, and Brexit.
So many unknowns.
6 of those massive fundamental events controlling the markets. You're wandering around in the dark with a blindfold on.
Yeah, I remember you saying on a couple of workshops that you could get your prep right, you could read the chart, you could do your analysis. When you go into the market, you need the market to do its thing.
You
And then
you still need the market to do its part, which we've seen today, since this week in abundance, and last week. Since January started, really, things have really changed because we don't have the Trump issues, the election issues, Brexit issues. It's not to say we're not going to get things in the future, but I genuinely can't see us. I mean, this pandemic, global pandemic, and potential recession seems like a walk in the park compared to where we've been.
Yeah.
And that's the bizarre thing about it, that, generally a global recession is the worst thing that can happen, worse than a war. But I would happily skip into a recession with the guys arm in arm, rather than go back to where we've been. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. So what do you think the future holds under Biden? Obviously, we trade the dollar fundamentally. What do you
Well,
think?
you're opening a can of worms here, because it's not. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I don't believe in Joe Biden. As you recall, I hated Donald Trump. As a man, I didn't like him, and I still question whether his policies and things that he bought into, whether they were for him or for the people. But the American people that I speak to liked him.
Yeah, he does seem to be popular in certain segments.
Yeah, because I think he was sort of semi-anti-establishment. We've completely gone back to handpicked, manipulated individual who will say and do the way he's told.
Yeah.
I don't think Joe Biden will be in office for long. I think the whole Hunter Biden laptop is around the corner, and there's no way Trump's going to let go of that. Do I think he'll run for president? I think he'll probably try, but I don't think he will have the clout, because they know him now, and they know how to destroy him. I think Harris will be in within 2 years. I'm not a fan of her either. She's been proven to be corrupt. But the one thing about trading is that because we don't take our information from the mainstream news, we have proper information. As a forex trader or online currency trader who trades fundamental and economic events, our eyes are wide open, and we see what the others don't see, and probably don't want to see. We have a clearer insight as to what really goes on.
I think it's very clear that what goes out into the mainstream media is
Sensationalised.
I'm not saying there's an agenda, but there's certainly
there is an agenda, and I know everything that goes out is catastrophized and sensationalized, and it's about getting clicks, and it's about drawing people. And as a kid, when you're growing up reading The Sun, you didn't understand how your mind was being trained. It's when you get older and become a little bit wiser that you start to realize, well, when that thing comes up on your phone, an alert to do with some news, we've read the real stuff on Trade the News, or in our proper news, and then it'll come up on your phone 5 minutes later with a completely different heading and agenda. Yeah. And whether it's all about bashing Boris, or bashing Trump, or bashing the UK, or England, if you like to say, Scotland, and battering us, or whatever. Every newspaper has an agenda, and it's not about giving you the facts. It's about pushing you in a direction that suits them or the people that own them. That's a fact. You remember the old days with the old, media tycoons, moguls, what's this guy, what's his name? Rupert Murdoch and Maxwell. It's all about that. They are in cahoots with governments. Tony Blair and Rupert Murdoch were, until he started having an affair with his wife, were the best of friends. And he worked to a degree for Rupert Murdoch because Tony Blair at the time was the spokesperson for the Prime Minister. All he was a spokesperson. And these leaders of states, other than China and Russia, the Western worlds, whether it be Scotland, Ireland, England, America, the people that are voted in to be head of state are purely spokespeople. They don't make the decisions. They are, they take advice from the professionals because they're not the professionals. What they are, it's a bit like a pantomime, not pantomime, but a bit like a acting scene. It's a bit like a series, EastEnders, Coronation Street, whatever. And they are very good actors. They're very good speakers. They are very charismatic. I mean, if you look at, the likes of Trump, Obama, they're very charismatic people. And we know Trump got in through social media and he's super charismatic. I mean, he's done countless shows which have been hits because of his presence. And the reality is that he's not a politician.
No, I mean, he had a huge following before he even went for office, didn't he? So
and that's what got him in. And that's what got him in. And
plus his ties in Russia, obviously, with his wife and everything. It all helped, didn't it?
Yeah.
So you mentioned social media.
Yeah.
I noted that social media was one of the biggest tools that was used in the Brexit decision. What was your view on how that?
So I voted out, but I voted out for different reasons. What most people think. I voted out purely because we were going through that much violence from a terror perspective. And at the time, the thing was Islam and extremists, which were, killing innocent people. And a lot of it was going on in our country. And because we had this freedom of movement between here and Europe, and they were all coming through that channel, I think that the freedom of movement needs to stop. From an economic standpoint, I know we were worse off. And we were one of the worst off. Germany is the EU. People don't realise that. Okay, at World War II, when Hitler tried to invade and take over Europe, he did it with guns, bombs, tanks. This might sound, and you might want to cut this from this because it might not be relevant, but the truth of the matter is, the EU, the European Union, Germany sets up something called the European Union. And they have done exactly the same thing without dropping a bomb. The way they've done it is to force nations or countries to depend on them. And in essence, make it so that if they didn't join them, that they would suffer. But they would suffer economically, which of course, every war, every bomb, it's all about power. Power is about money. So the analogy is exactly the same. The narrative is exactly the same. The goal is exactly the same. And we've seen how they have tried to treat us since we dare leave, punishing us and this and that and the other. I mean, in a democracy, in a free world, those kind of words and that kind of behaviour is should be left back in the dark days. We shouldn't, it's a choice. So I chose to leave mainly for safety for my family. I thought freedom of movement was a problem. I thought that I've got no problem with foreign people coming into work. I don't subscribe to that. Economically, I felt that we got less than we gave. And I just thought that the UK was losing its place on the world stage. Its voice was muted. What people don't realise is that we're actually the largest economy in the world. Not the fifth, the largest, because we are part of the Commonwealth. And from an economic standpoint, under EU law, we couldn't trade with India, which of course are in the Commonwealth, and they're the fastest growing economy in the world at 8%. We couldn't trade with them on a level playing field. It was subsidised, and that from makes a mockery of the whole Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is bigger than the European Union.
Of course.
But, you know, it was all about them.
Why do you think the Brexit negotiations took so long? I know there's obviously lots of detail on all the negotiations that were going on, but effectively it took us three prime ministers to get over the line with it.
So the answer's pretty easy.
Cameron, Theresa May, and Boris Johnson.
The answer's pretty easy. They wanted to drag it out so they could still use the good deal that suited them right to the now. There was no way there was going to be an early deal. No way. Because then, of course, you've got the transition period. So, like, from the minute the deal was done, then you've got a 5-year transition period. So they used 4 years to drag it out to still rip us off and rape us. Because don't forget, we still had to pay. Yeah. And then, of course, you then go through another 5 years of transition where we're still having to pay, or they're still got their hands in our pockets. So there was never going to be an early deal unless it suited the EU. Why? Why would there be an early deal? Of course it wouldn't.
So all the interim stuff potentially was just much like the coronavirus. It's just padding out. Probably no need for it to be in the press every day.
Trying to justify, but also there was another narrative, and that was they needed to prove to the other member nations that you dare try and leave us, this is what's going to happen to you. Because a smaller nation, I mean, they almost destroyed us. A smaller nation doesn't stand a chance. There were 7 other member nations ready to go for a vote. Now you think about
trying to set a precedent, obviously.
Listen, everyone got back in their box. Like that. There's no way we're going down that road. We'll never survive it. So that, you know, they were sending a message to others, and I think, in all honesty, the way the EU behaved, if they'd done, I mean, the vote was 1% difference. That was 49-51, 1%. And I think if there was a vote, if they'd gone to another vote, you'd have seen a much bigger gap. Really do, because the way they treated us.
And there's lots of people that are sort of waiting for that horrible, you know, we were promised this end of the world type situation.
It never happened.
It probably hasn't materialised. Why?
Again, press and MPs, never forget it, right? So the day after Brexit, the day before Brexit, the pound went up 1,000 points. I know because I made that much money, I bought a car from it. Okay. And then as soon as Sunderland, they voted no, we started to see lots of a vote to leave, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots. And if you look at the big cities, they voted in because they're multicultural. But it was all the smaller parishes, the smaller towns that said no, no, no. And Sunderland being the biggest one, and we've seen a massive drop. So it went up 1,000 points and it dropped 1,000 points. Yeah. But on the front of the paper, all you saw was the economy's crashed. The pounds dropped by 1,000 points, but that didn't tell you the truth. And this goes back to what mainstream media does. And this podcast isn't about mainstream media; it's about facts. But then, you know, you have the likes of the prime ministers and all the big people that wanted us to stay in come out and say it's all going over the edge now. You had Obama fly in and say, you know, you have to go to the back of the queue now. You know, they sent this wave of terror through the UK. Look at what you've done now, or you're in the shit now. But of course, it never happened. Economically, we were still strong. It never changed. Economically, our results were the same. It was all the talking it down that sent us then sent the pound crashing, which is what happened.
We saw an example of that the other evening with the interest rate decision. It was the press conference afterwards, and
what they said,
that version rather than the actual data that moved the markets.
Perfect example. You know, what these central bank leaders say is what drives markets really. You know, you can have a good GDP, you know, your retail sales be great, steady flow of investment.
Massive markets
Yeah,
doing its
but
job.
remember, each government has an agenda, a narrative, okay, which is every time it's about bringing investment into the country from outside. That is their number one agenda. I don't know whether people know that, but a prime minister or a president of a country, his goal, it's a business. The country is a business. It's about getting investment and money, and ultimately the most amount of money tax-wise they can get in. So bringing in investment from outside, which then creates lots of jobs, and of course lots of VAT and tax payments that they can then go and share contracts with their pals, which is what they do. The $1.9 trillion dollar relief package, it's all about going to their chaps, their pals. The 1.8 trillion euros, 1.8 trillion euro contracts is all going to the countries to buy them off, like Italy and Spain, sweeten them up so they won't leave the EU. And to a degree, it's been happening in the UK. They're handing out contracts like the London Excel. Is it the Excel? Who's owned by Rees-Mogg, 3 million a month for NHS Nightingale.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah,
Which
had 24 people in there.
supposedly is empty right now. So
24 people had in there at their peak.
yeah.
All these big contracts are going to friends of friends.
Yeah.
I saw one which was interesting. Someone set up a brand new limited company. 9 days later, it was given £120 million PPE contract. And guess who the business was owned by?
Don't doubt there's an agenda there.
Yeah. It was owned by a friend of one of the chaps, one of the MPs.
I read somewhere, which obviously is dangerous because unless the source is accurate, you never know the truth behind it. But a lot of people like Fauci in the States, obviously, who Trump was starting to push out a little bit, is now back in the frame very much in the States. It's widely believed that he has the patents on a lot of these.
That's just wrong. It's just moody, it's bent, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. That's just a massive conflict of interest in anyone's book. That's like you being arrested for a crime, and the arresting police officer is best friends with the person you allegedly committed a crime against. It's just unethical because there's an agenda there. There's no fairness. And this is exactly.
I think it's clear. So this isn't just going to be a simple FX or an FX or a forex related podcast. What sort of things can listeners and viewers in the future expect to hear from?
Well, simple FX is real people, real traders. Okay, so whilst the underlying message is about online trading and simple FX. But Simple FX is about the people, like our students. They are the glue, and
everybody has a real life.
Everyone has a real life. Everyone plays a part, even the lurkers who don't necessarily get involved. Everyone, plays their part. We did a fantastic event last night where people joined and spoke freely about experiences and whatnot. It was by far our best mentoring session for me personally, because I took so much from that. I mean, I was on a high all night, and I woke up with a smile on my face this morning. The going forward, I really want to bring in. I think you've done a fabulous job of interviewing, by the way. Fabulous. You couldn't have been better.
Trying to get
Craig,
I've got to be real for you as well.
Listen, I feel like I've been interviewed by a professional. You've done a fantastic job of it. I can't commend you enough. Okay, and I'm really excited about bringing in our students. New and old, and people are not necessarily connected to Forex who've got a story, because we come back to that what we said at the beginning. We're real people. And we're going to bear our asses, good, bad, and indifferent.
We need to buy a belt.
I won't go there. But yeah, I am really keen to continue down our vein of honesty, integrity.
So if you could achieve one thing from this podcast, what would it be?
On this podcast in
Yeah.
particular, I've already achieved it. To be honest with you, it's proven to me. You anyone watching this will get far more from this than they would an advert on Facebook or they will look at this and they'll either love us or hate us. Okay. And I dare say there's stuff on here people would have agreed with, and some people they'll strongly disagree with. Well, let's talk about that disagreement.
Sure, and I think what we would like to do is invite people to have an opinion on it and get involved with it as well. So through our social media channels, we will invite some feedback and some, if we've said anything that inspires anybody to have a comment or at least get involved, we'd welcome.
Get involved, whether you agree or disagree. We're going to select some people to come in. We're going to bring all our students in because each and every one of them, Simple Effects is about them. They've got a story and they can share their experiences about how they started, why they started, what led them up to starting. Because I think that's also important because people need to not just listen to me, but listen to what other people have got to say because they will resonate with them more so, I think. And they will see themselves in that person more, I think, because, we've said it before, I could just be just a great salesman and, not really be able to do what we need to do. The battery about to get, is it? Don't worry, we're almost done anyway, I think.
Apologies, guys, the battery's running low.
Can't get the stuff anymore.
One of the segments I'd like to see in the podcast is a live question and answer, so people could ask questions and get some answers back from yourself. So, Rachel and Katrina, I know you're joining us live for this pilot.
Alex is there as well. Just can't see.
Alex, yeah, he's just going to come off. If you could, in the chat window in here, if you've got any questions,
could you unmute them? Couldn't unmute them though.
We could do. It's just going to echo. So.
Yep.
So if you use the chat window just to ask any questions you might have for Richard or myself, we'll wrap up with a quick question and answer and call it a day from there. We'll have this pre-prepared when we do this live, obviously. I see you both typing away there. So, Race, who's going to get their question in first? Okay, so question from Katrina and Richard is, so what kind of people get into trading and what qualifications do you need?
So, repeat the question.
So what kind of people get into trading and what qualifications do they need?
You know what? So that's a good question. What sort of people? There isn't a sort. There isn't a clear demographic of individual. We know through doing our analytics on Facebook that it's generally male between 25 and 45, although we are starting to see a much bigger influx of females, much more good looks, I think. In terms of qualifications, I don't think you need any qualifications, but certainly an understanding of figures, a understanding of computers, and an interest in world events would certainly make you better prepared for this. And of course, not be a gambler.
I heard you say before that, obviously if trading was easy, then everybody would be doing it.
Yeah.
It's not something that everybody's cut out to do, but and whilst I understand there's not a typical kind of trader type of person, what would you say makes a good trader? What are the attributes of a good trader?
So you just said something there. It's not for everyone, but I think everyone should try it. I don't think that's been enough of a sales tactic because some people take to this. Look at me.
Yeah.
I'm dyslexic. I have no qualifications. Haven't done a day schooling from the age of 12. I can't spell. That's the guy. I'll tell you. But there was something in this that enabled me to afford a life that even I never thought was possible.
And in turn, your family will obviously benefit from that as well, you know. So it's
And the kids, if they behave themselves, get it. Yeah. So yeah, so I think everyone should try it. Sensibly, obviously, with help and guidance, because if you're young, it's quite hard to stay. Is that gone, is it? Sorry, guys, his computer went down.
What do you expect?
Yeah. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was brilliant. Let me just unmute you 1 second.
That was really good.
Let's have a look. So
there's actually probably stuff in there we'd want to use for the real thing.
Definitely. Let me just unmute. Am I host or not?
Yes, you are.
You can unmute yourself, guys. Alex, Rachel, and Katrina. Let me just turn mine up.
Is it working?
Yeah. So let me just. Full screen. Let me just pick that up.
Hello. Is this working?
Sorry, testing. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I thought it was bloody brilliant. I really enjoyed that. I think that
really good. You really were engaging.
Yeah, I think that's Craig, to be honest. Craig, questions he was asking was absolutely spot on. And it was easy for me to flow because, you know, I can talk for England. But that was, for a first,
your personality out
for a first time, that was the first time we'd done
it's
that.
Not
that
scripted
was
either. I just
unscripted. Was, I think what people could get from that would be,
yeah, it was really good. I think Craig's got a real presence. He asks really intellectual questions, and you answered them really well. I think the only observations I'd say is it depends how you're going to go about it in the future. So, are you going to be sat in the room together, or do you intend doing it on screen?
Yeah, well, he works in the office full time here, so we're gonna, tidy things up a little bit and have ourselves almost like a studio, if you like. We'll try to get ourselves a bit of a studio. What I might do in the future when I buy a kitchen is we might do it over on the island in the kitchen. Do you know what I mean?
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, I might do it over there because we've got the big screens and everything over there anyway. So
just light and
because we've got very limited light here, as you can see down here. It's terrible down here.
I think my only general observation, and like I say, I knew this was a practice, but it would be nice if you introduced yourselves at the beginning, just to say who you are and what you're doing. Because obviously, like you say, Craig, he's very authoritative, and it's actually be good to see why he's interviewing you, or what sort of what is the topic of the podcast.
Yeah,
because in the very first one, you want to showcase what the series is going to be about. So what topics are you going to be covering? And obviously feed into whatever topics they are. But
that'll be in the title at the beginning when we put it out, I think. Yeah.
So natural. I thought it was brilliant.
Thank you, Katrina. Your comments are noted and much appreciated.
You're very welcome.
What did you think, Rach?
I thought it was really good. I put in the chat that it was very entertaining. It was very, very easy to listen to. Very, very interesting.
I wrote a page full of just positive stuff as I was going through.
He was very.
I think it's our connection dropping down. I
think
it's
being scripted and stunted and going right next question. It wasn't like that. It flowed really easily, really, really well. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you, Rachel. Alex, are you there?
I'm here, but I don't know if my mic is working. Can you
Your
hear
mic's
me?
working, but your camera's
You're
not.
coming through with a funny accent, Alex. That's what-
All right. No, it was great. It was great to watch. Very professional. I really enjoyed it. Good. It's working.
Brilliant. Thank you. Well, we're obviously looking to sort of push this and progress this. What I would like to do is I'd like to see us do more of this, less sort of advertising, if you like. So,
Because it's something to listen to again.
yeah, would you tune in and listen to these things again? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
I would,
And,
yes, for sure.
yeah.
It would be nice if I really want to move to video for the sessions, but the problem is that, we've tried this before, but the bulk of the people are at work, so they can't have sort of sound on the background. So I think we might keep sort of the live trading to a sort of chat room, but do like a bit of a radio analysis sessions, record them, and people can push them out back to the people later. But I really like the feel of not having to type.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because the typing is by far the bane of my life, as you know.
But the thing is, I think that's what's important about what you're doing. It's actually people engaging with you as the mentor. It's people thinking, oh, this is the guy who I'm going to be signed up to.
Yeah.
This is why I'm joining. And he's got, you've got so much to say about so many subjects that actually you think, okay, what's the next one going to be about? And I'm going to come back for that.
Yeah.
So
Brilliant. I mean, we could effectively do a podcast on every one of the masterclass titles. Do you know what I mean? Where we could talk more in depth about them. Thanks for tuning in, guys, because you know what, we need this. We need,
it's a massive help.
yeah, we need, we can sit here. We would have not known of how, we'd have had a feeling, but you're integral parts of what we do, and your feedback is fantastic. And thank you for tuning in.
you're welcome. Just look at the camera more.
You're welcome.
I need to look at the camera more.
Yes, both of you.
I put myself off though. When I look at the camera, I just think, fucking.
Then I suppose if you both sat together, like say in the kitchen or something, that would be a more natural environment, so people would understand that you're looking at each other.
We're trialing it. I'm going to invest in a bit more kit, and we will make it, with much smoother production. I think we're going to try and maybe do one at least 3 a week, maybe.
Get those social media lights, can't you?
Yeah.
One of those there.
We're going to try and maybe do 3 a week on various different things and people. Because we can do stuff on current, what's going on out there. Do you know what I mean? What's the actual the thing of the week, whether it be non-farm payrolls and whatnot. So, I'm going to go get my haircut by my daughter now. Thank you, guys.
Oh, you're welcome. Really enjoyed it.
I see. We were right that the dollar's started to dip. We just got a bad entry. Everything's pulling back against the dollar now. So
I'm well happy. I've been a euro long since first thing this morning. I got right in at the bottom.
You're buzzing, and you are.
Happy days.
Thanks, guys. Have a fabulous weekend.
And you, mate.
Right.
You too.
See you all. Probably see you tomorrow on the
Oh yeah.
workshop if you're tuning in. If I don't see you tomorrow on the workshop, I'll see you on Monday.
You'll see you tomorrow. See you later.
Thanks
See you.
again.
Bye.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye all.
Bye.